Now going to Phil J. Berg, a former Deputy Attorney General of Pennsylvania, former candidate for governor of the U.S. Senate, the Democratic primaries, former chair of the Democratic Party in Montgomery County, former member of the Democratic State Committee and attorney with offices in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and an active member in Philadelphia. He is a paid life member of the NAACP and a volunteer fire police for 27 years. And phil-berg, early on, was one of the first person to credibly start asking about the birth certificate. And so, sir, for those that just joined us, state the basic facts of the birther movement and then the key information on Indonesia and all the new developments that have unfolded since then.
Sure, pleasure to be on. It's an honor to be on your show, Alex.
Good to have you.
Respect you, and you have a great audience out there. And hello, Alex Jones fans. Phil-Berg here, and you gave me a great introduction. This is now my 29th year being a volunteer fire police, and we all have to give back to our community. And I'm giving back to our country right now. This is now my 23rd month in pursuing Obama, who is my new name for him. He's a complete imposter. He's a phony, a fraud, but he's an imposter, and we have to do something about it. I'll get into the latest thing that's still pending in the courts. How I got involved in this, someone called me up and said, had you heard the rumor that Obama's not natural born? I said a little bit, and I did some checking, and I filed the first lawsuit against Obama August 21st, 2008, before the Democratic National Convention. And at that time, I sued Obama and the Democratic National Committee, and I figured the Democratic National Committee would question Obama and therefore, either produce documentation that he's natural born or not nominate him. But there was collusion there between the Democratic National Committee because they didn't do anything, and they actually have joined forces in fighting my lawsuits. I ended up filing 3 lawsuits, and about another 100 lawsuits have been filed around the country, most of them dismissed on the area of standing. The courts have said that no one has the right to challenge the Constitution. Unbelievable. But that's the court system now, and if the national media had done what they should have done, and that is properly vet Obama, he never would have been nominated. What the national media did to Sarah Palin is what they should have done to Obama, and he would not be where he is. And the national media is shaking a little, but they're still covering for Obama. The biggest thing is 2 months before I got involved, to quell the rumors, on the Obama campaign website, they put a document up there called a COLB, Certification of Live Birth, trying to indicate that Obama was born in Hawaii. The document by experts have been proven. We have experts that have said it's a phony. It's been altered. At the very bottom, it says if there's any alteration of this document, the document is invalid. And significant, a COLB is different than a birth certificate. A birth certificate has on it the weight of the baby, the length of the baby, the hospital name, the doctor's name, the doctor's signature, none of which appeared on this phony document which they produced, which they continue to refer back to as a birth certificate.
And the feet. I mean, it normally has the ink stamped feet. I mean, I have a copy of that with myself, so it's this receipt, and they've acted very, very secretive and will never release it. But then you brought out even more important intel, and that's why I was neutral on this in the last 2.5 years, but leaning towards it being true, and I respect you and others. But then when we learned that he did give up his citizenship, that his real name is Barry Soetoro, that when you give up your citizenship to that nation, you then are not eligible to be president. Any way you slice this, he's ineligible. And then the cover-up just adds to the fact of where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right, and you gave a great analysis there, and let me just explain that it's hard for Obama to get out of it because in the 2 books that he has had about his life so young, one of them says he found his birth certificate, so he has his birth certificate. So why hasn't he produced the birth certificate at this time? And the other thing is he states that his parents were divorced, and he mentions that his mother remarried because he mentions in his book that his stepfather returned to Indonesia before his mother, and he did. And that's significant because Indonesia, he mentioned his stepfather, and we have the school record, which you are very correct, Alex. His name is Barry Soetoro. So if he hasn't legally changed his name since then, and there's no evidence he did, his name is Barry Soetoro, so every time he signs his name is Barack Hussein Obama in each of the 50 states and territories. When he ran for president was fraud, when he was sworn in is fraud, and everything he signs now is fraud. And then
And he was known in college as Barry.
Barry, right.
He's even called into radio shows in the last year saying, hey, this is Barry.
Yep. I mean, the guy he's such an imposter. It's unbelievable.
What about the new videos, two of them of his wife saying, you know, he was born in Kenya and you know, we went back to Kenya, the place of his birth. I mean, she's just out there like it's a sick joke.
Right, and now that has been released lately in the past few months, but that's from 2008. I mean, the overwhelming evidence and the overwhelming actual evidence and circumstantial evidence is overwhelming that Obama was born in Africa, that he is not natural born. And because of his status over in Indonesia, I believe that he came back to the United States to Hawaii at age 10, and I believe they came back on his Indonesia passport, and then, believe it or not, he didn't go through immigration, and therefore he's not only not natural born, he's not naturalized, but he's an illegal alien.
All right, phil-berg, let's expand on that, because the media always says, hey, why would his family put a birth announcement in the newspaper if that isn't true? Well, if you've got a daughter who's overseas, she's going to write, she's going to call. I mean, they're going to want him to be a citizen. They're going to want to cover their bases and carry out this fraud. They were high-powered foundation people, you know, tied into intelligence. The evidence is clear. I mean, that's happened many times where people dummied up that their kid was really born, you know, in the United States when they weren't.
Well, it doesn't really even say he was born in the United States. It said he was born. My children live in different states. One of my daughter-in-law is expecting. As last year, when one of my grandchildren was born, I put an announcement in a paper here locally where I live. That doesn't mean they live here because they don't live here. And also, Hawaii permitted the cold being given for someone up to a year after birth. So, you know, they hang their head on this cold and they hang on this two newspaper announcements of a birth on a street address, which people checked out, and then people there said there was never a black child living there. So that to me, is not evidence. Or like on our website, we have the tape of Sarah Obama, that's his step-grandmother, in Swahili, and we have the translation stating that she was in the hospital when he was born in Mombasa, Kenya, on August 4th, 1961.
And they act suspicious of grabbing and detaining reporters that go over there time and time again. So very suspicious.
Absolutely. And then may she rest in peace, but his white grandmother in Hawaii, you never saw the press near her. She would have known where he was born. She would have known facts about, but she never got to the press. And also, this is the woman that meant so much to him during his lifetime. Yet when she died, he didn't even fly back for her funeral. You know, he did it like a month later. But also 2 weeks before that, he said she's deathly ill, and I'm going to fly out in a half hour to see her. Then he changed his mind and flew out 2 days later. And if she's such an important person, why didn't he take his wife with him? And maybe the kids, but definitely his wife. He didn't take his wife with him. I mean, the whole thing, nothing makes sense with Obama about this. But what is, and let me go back on the thing, where I think he's not natural born and not naturalized. That's one of the cases I have pending now in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. That's the Washington, D.C. Court of Appeals, which affirmed recently the decision to not let my case go forward, but I've now asked for a court en banc. I've asked for the entire court to hear my case. There I'm alleging that Obama is not natural born, not naturalized, but he's an illegal alien, and therefore his term as a United States Senator from Illinois was fraud. Therefore, the salary and benefits he received should be returned to the U.S. Treasury, which is about $1 million. Those type cases are sealed. When I had it sealed, people wondered why. All those type cases, which are called False Claims Act or qui tem cases, are sealed. They're mainly used in Medicaid and Medicare fraud cases, and they're sealed because the person you're bringing it against is not notified of the case. It goes to the Justice Department and the Attorney General's office for them to review the case in 60 days and make a decision of, one, are they going to prosecute the case? Two, are going to let the person who brought the case, in this case, what's called a relator, or three, dismiss the case. Very few cases are dismissed. They decided to dismiss my case against Obama, and I raised the issue of conflict of interest. And Alex, if this scenario is not conflict of interest, we should take those words out of the dictionary and out of the legal dictionary and out of the legal system. I mean the fact that the decision is made by the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office. Who's the head of that? The Attorney General of the United States. Who's the Attorney General of the United States? Eric Holder. Well, Eric Holder, number one, was a senior member of Obama's campaign staff. Number two, he was one of three individuals selected by Obama to select a vice president who eventually selected Biden. And number three, he was nominated, appointed, and confirmed as Attorney General, the highest law enforcement officer in the country, who reports to the president. So if that person is not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. So that's where I'm at now with the D.C. Court of Appeals. Hopefully they'll have a court en banc. If not, we're going to take that case up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, let me say this. You've definitely won in the court of public opinion. A lot of Congress people and others will come out and say that they think the birth certificate issue is legitimate. There's no doubt the Indonesian citizenship. We've got a president with a fake made-up name. That's confirmed. I mean, that's why the controlled corporate media keeps getting so mad that we won't shut up about this and that it just keeps gaining ground in national polls, because when somebody looks at the actual evidence, it is overwhelming that there's a massive cover-up and he's ineligible just on the Indonesian citizenship and name issue. And that's why they've got all of his college records so sealed. And so his approval rating's gone from 85% down to 40. He's got the lowest approval rating of any president this far into their situation. But then there's the issue you raised years ago on this show. He's compromised. The establishment knows he's Indonesian citizen, bare minimum, almost certainly born in Kenya, Kenyan citizen born. They know that. So imagine how they're able to blackmail him with this information.
Oh, I definitely think he's blackmailed. I think that's why most of the speeches he gives are on teleprompter. He's reading them. He's great to deliver a speech off a teleprompter, not as good elsewhere, but he's told what to say. And I think our whole country is in jeopardy because of it. This health care bill is blatantly, as far as I'm concerned, unconstitutional, and many other things he's doing. And that's why, and through your help, we had scheduled, if you recall, a march back Memorial Day. We had to cancel that for certain reasons. Excuse me, we haven't rescheduled it yet, but looks like we're going to have it in October, getting near election time, because I think people's interest will be up.